What if justice wasn't just about systems, but about the soul? Welcome to the Spiritual Justice Show with me, Eric S. Lee. You've heard me say it before. For too long, we thought restorative justice alone could save us. But repairing harm without changing systems doesn't end the cycle. Social justice fights for equity, but without spirit, the work becomes a grind. Transformative justice seeks culture change, but without compassion, it struggles to hold. Spiritual justice completes the circle. It heals the heart while changing the system. It restores dignity while shifting culture. It brings spirit back into justice. Each week, I'll bring together leaders, healers, and change makers to explore a new vision of justice: restorative, transformative, and deeply spiritual. And people like you, spiritual justice warriors who choose courage, compassion, and creativity in action.
Everyone, every time I hear that opener, it just hits me. And some days it hits me harder than others. Today is one of those days. I'm Dr. Pat, and I get to take this amazing spiritual justice journey with the one and only Eric S. Lee. Today, before we invite the world in, I love the topic Eric's picked. Before we invite the world in, a pause, a promise, and a path forward. And as we move forward into this year, there are so many firsts. But if we are not going to look at this, there is going to be a rough path ahead. This episode is a conscious pause. It's a moment to reflect on where we've been, name what we stand for, and set clear intentions for where we're going next. And I am very clear. The word is intentions. I'm telling you, it is time to kick them resolutions to the curb and dial into the fire of intention. But before we can do that, whether it's a new organization, a new moment, it's new leader, new host, new guest on the show, we have to do something. And in order to do that, we have to do some grounding for the show, for the deepest values that we almost forget. That's what Eric is bringing. The pause is intentional beyond anything you could see or hear. It's honoring the foundational pieces, what we built, ensuring that what comes next is rooted in integrity, alignment, and purpose. And that's not me. This is Eric's message. This is a way we move forward. This is the evolution that creates the bridge. And if we don't understand the power of the pause, the patience of the pause, and the perseverance in the pause, you're going to be running around chasing your tail like a dog that thinks there's a bone attached to it. Eric, what a great show and topic for today. And I want to start out by asking you, why did this particular, there are a lot of reasons for me why I relate to it, but man, I wanted to know what hit your heart to really drive this episode forward.
So, I was listening, I watched the episodes after, and, I try to do social media posts. I want to get the word out there. And, as I listened to the opening, the thing that was calling to me was, we bring together leaders, healers, and change makers. And it seemed to me that with what we've laid, the foundation we've laid in the previous shows and where we've been, that we are getting ready to move into inviting those leaders, healers, and change makers onto the show to share where they are with these topics that we are talking about and how they feel aligned in their organizations, and how we can connect with them and hear their voices and maybe give them some help as they try to help the world, connecting these spiritual justice warriors who watch the show to the organizations who need them the most. And it was like, okay, in restorative justice, we encourage people to take a minute. If you need to take a minute and really think about what you want to say, really think about what your needs are, we encourage you to do that. And it was taking a page from that that I felt was needed in this particular show. Let's really reflect back on where we've been, touch on the points that we discussed, express the foundation,
Yeah.
and then get ready to open it up and move forward.
Yeah. I'm so glad you're bringing this forward. I'm really struck by the energy of it, and I want to say that I don't think I'm alone. But here's what I do think, where you and I may be alone for a minute, just a minute. It's the idea of the conscious pause. It's the thing that when I was in the greatest part of my spiritual growth became a priority. And today, I understand the importance of it, but I also understand where I can do better in my own life with it. And I think you're right about that. We should reflect. So let's go back in time. Let's talk about these restorative practices and let's talk about the pause. Because if we don't learn to pause, there are some things that can happen that we can't undo. I was listening to one of my spiritual people I listen to, and boy, she's a firecracker. She really is. And she was talking about this idea of become a conscious creator. Now, what does that mean? That means that before you get in your car that has bald tires on it in the middle of a snowstorm, hit the pause button, people. Now, why am I using that metaphor? Because that's life. That's life. So, can you talk about the pause before we respond? Because we cannot take back the response once it's out there.
So this pause, it goes a few places for me. One is those instances that you just talked about as it relates to conscious creation and how you know conscious creation is really really important, because if you don't have it, and so many people don't, and I need to touch on this place because this is where restorative justice does a lot of its work. It's like, what is the opposite of conscious creation? Unconscious creation, right? And so if we're not able to self-reflect and self-regulate, what we end up doing is taking unconscious messages in unconscious or subconscious programs and begin creating our lives from that place. Now, a lot of the people that we end up serving in restorative justice do a bit of subconscious or unconscious creation. And that is why they end up in trouble with the law or with disciplinary referrals to the schools or all those things, because they're really not consciously thinking about and considering what it is they want to create, what it is they want to create that's in their best interest, and how they do that creation intentionally moving forward. And so sometimes when you go into the unconscious creation piece, then it ends up being destructive. So there's that piece. Then there's the other piece about when you think about creation and we think about pauses, what did I just do? If I didn't just take a breath between my words, then I just have a stream of words that are unintelligible that we can't recognize. Music is the same way. Music is not necessarily created by all of the notes that we're playing. It is created in part by those spaces, pauses that are between those notes and how they are arranged. And so, we underestimate the power and importance of pauses and spaces before we're moving forward with what it is we're doing.
Okay, you brought up the music thing. So I'm a kid in the Bronx, right? And I happened to move into an area where they just built a brand new junior high school, right? Right down the street from like a half a block. Like I used to play in the dump down the end of the street, right? Even when I was not supposed to. So they put this brand new school. Now, highly unlikely a kid like me would get into a new junior high school, but it was right down the street. So we in the district, right? So I go in and I'm learning different. I have some differences, okay? Now I stuttered, so pausing for me is very meaningful. But they give me an instrument. I couldn't play the cello, my hands were too small. Didn't have the wind to play a wind instrument, so he gives me the viola. And that is an instrument that very, very few times do you listen to a person that plays the viola and can recognize anything they're playing because it plays the in between notes. But without the in between notes, Eric, the impact on the melody, the music, the beauty of it is missing something. Isn't that the same for humanity? Because haven't we been given the gift and the ability to pause?
Yeah, and I'm going to go away from music for a second and go, okay, so sometimes we take off on a journey and we walk 100 miles or we drive 100 miles and we stop and pause and we recognize that we are going the wrong way. And if we didn't pause to get our bearings, we would continue going the wrong way. So it also gives us the opportunity to
Mm,
assess where we're at and if we are
mhm.
in fact moving in the direction we want to be moving in, and course correct if needed, or affirm, yes, full steam ahead. This
Mhm.
is where we want to go.
So before we can invite organizations in, leaders, community members, let's talk about the question that you're posing. The question is, what kind of space are we creating? And what do we want people to feel when they enter it? Look, I moved to New Jersey and I've been working on my space. You have a beautiful background. You created something that when people watch you on the show, and we hit the pause to create that background for you, to create that idea, right? There's a message, there's an energy of it. So here's the question. What do leadership, right? Leaders in community, what kind of space are you creating here? What do you want that invitation to feel like for them?
I want this invitation for them to feel like a space where they can freely express what it is they're doing. They can freely identify the passion and purpose that drives that organization, that connects them with their communities, and it perhaps a reaffirmation to the commitment that they have to do the work that they're doing. Because sometimes I know it happens with me, and again, I talked about this story where I had a funder that we applied for a grant from, and they had some questions, and I ended up going in and meeting them in person, and then I ended up giving them the story of the organization and what we're doing, and answered the question XYZ, check the box, right? So we got all the preliminaries out of the way and all the necessarily information that they wanted, and the conversation moved to my personal connection to this work and how that aligned with my purpose and meaning. And as I discussed that, and as I was able to reflect on why I was in the place I was at, doing the work I was doing, my own words brought me to tears because it was an opportunity to reaffirm and reconnect with why I'm here. And hopefully with the people that we bring on, we can give them the same opportunity to, sometimes it takes expression. So sometimes somebody will ask us the right question that will unlock
Mm.
that journey that we've been on, what it means, and how that's connected to our inner purpose and meaning.
Yeah. So Eric, I mean, look, I love this next question that you really put on the table for us today. I studied the consequences of broken promises for 10 years and, believe it or not, it was very difficult to study, but it was done. But The flip side of that are the opportunities that promises create, the doors, the opening. So, what promise are we making in the show as you begin to bring in local partners, engage in the community? What are some of the promises you want to bring forward that is going to help define the energy of this space?
Well, one promise is that you have a collaborative partner to elevate the souls of humankind. And we will help support that mission and that part of whatever the nature of the work is, that you have a collaborative partner in moving that forward. And we also promise that you have an interested voice to give you a platform to express however you want. And sometimes you'll find ways that you couldn't even think of because of how we will ask questions that really bring what the message and mission of organizations are to the public, and they'll be able to reflect back. They'll probably get a copy of the episode where they can post it on their website, or they can look at it to study themselves, to say, okay,
Yeah.
well, where am I here really? But really another tool and resource for them to use to both self-reflect and project to their communities the work that they're doing.
Hmm. You know what I love about this? I remember debating, I was on the verge of defending my part one and part two. I had to do postdoctorate on it. And I remember defending, and I had a phrase in there. I had two people on my committee who wanted this phrase removed. The good news is I had three people that voted not to remove it. Um, I had been one of the first people to empirically study the definition of integrity. No one had studied it up to that point. But the one phrase that was part of that definition they wanted to yank out is the following. What I said is, when all is said and done, after you look at these 5 bullet points of integrity, the one thing it must do is honor the dignity of the human spirit. Now, I thought that should be like breathing, but that's what we're talking about. So, can you talk about how important it is as we create the space to really honor the dignity of all that come together, whether they agree, they don't agree, whether they've been part of a restorative or spiritual justice process, whether they've been on the flip side of that? Can you talk about this with regard to that point of integrity and honesty that respects everyone in the room?
Well, what that brings up for me, and it's something that we're trained to do in restorative practices. And, I'm going to throw out a word, and I'm going to talk about the word, because when I first went through my training, this word came up, and I'm like, okay, that's a word. I think I know what it is. And, you kind of pretend you know what the word is when you're in the training, and then you go look it up and you study it, and then you go, oh, okay. And that word is multi-partiality. And one of the traits and characteristics of restorative practices, and one of the things that facilitators of restorative justice and restorative practices have to keep in mind at all times when they're facilitating a circle amongst a lot of individuals where there's harm or conflict involved, is that multi-partial piece. Now, let me talk about the word. If you're not familiar, if you're out there and you're not exactly familiar with multi-partial is, think about the word impartial. Now, when you think about the word impartial, impartial means that you're not going to take a side. You're going to stay neutral, right? Multi-partial takes that a step further and says that as a facilitator, not only will I be impartial, but I'm going to be multi-partial, meaning I am actually in an advocacy position for everyone in the circle. And those people can be diametrically opposed. And what makes it even more of a tightrope walk is that, sometimes I'm facilitating conflicts that go against my personal views. And I still, as a facilitator, as an effective facilitator, are going to hold myself as a multi-partial individual and will advocate for that point of view as well, in spite of what my views are there. And I'm going to give you an example. There was a young man once that I had to facilitate that did harm in a school. Without going into too much detail, it was a hate crime. This young man thought it would be a funny, great idea to put a noose on a student of color's car. I, in the restorative process, and I am a person of color, ended up in a multi-partial position advocating that young man's point of view as he took responsibility for it and also was willing to repair whatever harm he'd done. Long story short, what ended up happening was because he took responsibility for it, because he was in an environment that was uplifting him and was multi-partial and was able to advocate for him as a human, he became an advocate for people of color.
Yeah.
After the process, because part of him repairing harm was him educating himself on why that wasn't a good idea. And
Yeah.
so it came, no pun intended, full circle. It came full circle where hate crime turned into creating an advocate for those who were hated against.
Yeah, there's no question about that. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about that. One of the most powerful interviews I've ever done was between two people that co-authored a book, one from the white Aryan nation and the other a gay person. And they wrote this book together. And why? Because, as he called himself, the white supremacist person nearly killed this gay man. And from that lesson, and it's a story for another show, but see, this is spiritual justice. This is restorative spiritual justice. This is the message of spiritual justice and integrity with the energy and the guise of forgiveness, which the gay man absolutely did, and the willingness to invite in conscious change. Let's take a short break. Before we do, Eric, what is the best way for people to track you down, find out more about you, and be part of what you're doing?
You can visit fullcirclerj.org, or you can contact me by email at eric.lee@fullcirclerj.org.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, get ready for this. What values? This is so important now. And I'm telling you, I wish schools would talk about values. What values will guide who gets invited, how to engage them, and what to do moving forward? Is the door wide open? Do we have a clear canvas? Or does it look like my background? Let's take a short break. We'll be right back.
Do you want to better understand and embrace neurodiversity? I'm Dr. Lori Noto, with over 30 years of experience working with diverse and unique individuals. Through my consulting and purpose-driven life coaching, I focus on empowering individuals with disabilities. My passion is advocacy, providing the tools for neurodiverse individuals to thrive and feel included in classrooms, workplaces, and communities. Unlock the potential of possibility, power, and purpose. Connect with me today at notoholisticconsulting.com.
Here's a quick tip from Jason and Patricia at the Ecosystem Approach Show. We're going to help you feel better now. To feel better now, we're going to show you how to activate life force. This is the energy that creates life and is the ultimate feel-good energy.
Here we go, follow along. I direct all my resources in all dimensions to activate life force. Imagine life force filling up your body. We picture golden white light. And take a breath and imagine starting with your heart, this golden white light filling you up and making you feel warm and tingly all over.
If you want to know more, watch the Ecosystem Approach Show with Jason and Patricia, Mondays at 1 p.m. Pacific and 4 p.m. Eastern Time. In every show, we teach you how to apply energy techniques to everyday life in ways that is practical and useful. See you Monday at 1 p.m. Pacific and find us at theecosystemapproach.org.
Are you ready to heal your mind, body, and soul? Tune into the Real Healing Institute show with Michelle Sinclair every second and fourth Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Tap into the power of spiritual guidance to heal your beliefs, elevate your well-being, and release subconscious pain. Enter the space where truth reigns and divine alignment begins. Ready to step into higher spiritual awareness? Visit therealhealinginstitute.com today and start your journey.
Welcome back, everyone. Listen, today's show, and you are tuned in to, I'm Dr. Pat. I get to take this amazing journey with Eric Esley. This is spiritual justice. This is Eric's platform. This is the voice. This is the voice of stepping forward and understanding what this is about when we say spiritual justice. But it's even more than that. This particular episode is, how do we invite the world in? And not just in this show, but what Eric is talking about today is, how do you invite the world in? And sometimes it's, how do you invite your family in? Can you invite them in? Do you know what to do? What is the energy? What is the promise? What is the path forward? Eric, before we touch upon and really get down into the conversation today about the values that will guide this, again, let folks know how they can reach out to you and contact you.
You can reach me at fullcirclerj.org. And you can also just reach out and connect with me by email at eric.lee@fullcirclerj.org. And I'd love to talk to you.
I'd love for you to talk to people. Let's talk about it. What values are going to guide this? What values are going to guide who gets invited and how you engage with them moving forward? What are your thoughts on that?
Thinking about this, and I considered it pretty carefully, and it's like, I think it's really important to prioritize voices grounded in lived experience instead of just credentials, or you got, and I'm not going to diminish education or people with master's degrees and PhDs and this certificate and that certificate and all these things and certifications, but to actually have the experiences in the realms that you're working in is going to be really, really important. I really don't want to have strictly philosophical conversations about, yeah, if we look at this data and we look at that data and, we studied this and we found out this, that is great. And data is very important, but we want people who have walked it, and people who have walked it with youth. And we also want organizations that make those walks and those commitments with youth in a community, as nonprofits, or it could be a faith organization. It could be an organization dealing with the justice system. One of the people I really want to talk about is an organization that takes urban kids out into the mountains and for days has them do vision quest type activities so they can learn how to connect with the outdoors and learn how much those green spaces elevate their sense of being. So I think the main thing is just experience and connection and consistent work with youth, as community leaders or healers.
But let's talk about this idea of values, because I was part of a project. Didn't really know how it would impact me, but it was called the Virtues Project. It was amazing. It's still out there, values, virtue. But one of the things that I love about this that we do need to talk about is the word inclusivity. Inclusivity. And what I mean by that is, it's great. It's like having a party, having like a party at your house for a holiday or something, and you invite people over. See, you can invite people over that are just like you. You can invite people over that are not like you, or you can invite people without thinking about who they are. Physically, what color are you? What do you believe in? How does this work? And so part of this, how do we navigate the waters of different value systems? You do it every day, don't you?
I do. And it's like, the frustration that I have with what's going on in the world right now is like inclusivity, or inclusiveness. And then when we immediately start talking about that, we start, it's DEI automatically comes up, because it's like, okay, diversity, equity, inclusion, inclusivity, right? Those words kind of function well together. And if you are inclusive in who you invite and who you're interacting with, then you are going to create diversity, right? So it's funny that diversity was the first of that DEI moniker, a word that we use. And then the other thing is equity, and it's like it just goes together. And equity is just naturally a part of all of it, because when you start talking about being inclusive and inviting and talking and interacting and not excluding in whatever way that is, diverse voices, and you are inclusive that way, then the needs change, and what you need to offer changes, and how you function needs to change a little bit, because everybody's need, what they need to be successful in a party. I mean, you use the thing about, if you invite people to a party, I mean, if you're going to have an inclusive party, you need to consider what kind of food you got, and that
Oh,
some people are in recovery and can't have alcohol, and you need to think about all of these needs that you need to consider. And that is the equity piece, right? So they all go together. And really, if people, those who rail against DEI, would really think about it and really think about what the words mean and what you're trying to do, those that I talk to feel a little bit differently when you break it down that way.
you know what's interesting about what you just said? Okay, I got any. I'm gonna. What's the word? Digress, regress. I'm gonna regress. I
Yes.
got an email from someone. I guess it was towards the end of the year because I was moving across the country and I got it. And I read the email from a very knowledgeable person, like about what we're talking about. And I called them up and I said, you got a typo in the email. And he said, no, I don't. I said, you do. Didn't you mean DEI? He said, no, I meant what I wrote. I said, you meant DIE? He said, that's exactly what I meant. And that was the most interesting conversation. Now, I don't know if it was a typo or not, or you just didn't want, it's kind of like I caught him, but not really. But we had the most incredible conversation about a feeling. And I wanted to ask you this question. We're seeking leaders. I'm working with there's a show today. I have more shows on leadership showing up because I think I made a commitment to really branch out in that arena and really have those conversations. But I don't want to have the same conversation, Eric, and I don't think you do either. So, isn't part of the success and motivation of what this is about, isn't this also about opening the doors for disagreement? I'm writing a letter that I'm getting ready to send out. I'm not the best one with words in writing. And I started to write it. And I had a hard time coming up with what the subject is. And out of my little fingers on my typing, I did a typo. Here's what it says: 2026 is the year you become unmissable. Unmissable? Is that like a word? See, I created the word unstuckable, unmissable. What that means is you are seen, you're recognized. Whether you are part of the restorative justice arena, whether you have become part, I got to tell you, I'm back in New Jersey, and Linda took me on a ride the other day, and I want to talk to this because this is very real and very raw. So for all of you out there, I personally want to invite you to forgive yourself. And I don't mean it in a way where you've done something wrong. I mean, it is time to let go of a past you cannot change and get ready for what Eric's about to tell you about your future. And I rode through my North Plainfield, New Jersey, where I was arrested and could have gone to jail a long time. And I got to tell you, Eric, it was as if I was back there at 19 years old. And I'm just like, Linda, can you get out of here? Can you get me a different, just go, get me, just, and she's like, oh, let's go down Grove Street and let's go. And I'm like, oh, I mean, I'm pale. I am pale. Let's talk about now how this show and the promise, the commitment you're making to do the inner work, where the inner work meets collective action, has to include the energy of forgiveness.
The energy of, say the last part.
Forgiveness.
Oh, you
Come on now.
know,
This is we're going to talk about in this
Dr.
segment.
Pat,
We're going to talk
Dr.
about the
Pat,
possibility of inner
we're
work and meets
doing
the collective.
we're
Come on
we're
now.
we're doing spiritual calculus now. So listen, that is almost, and we can argue, and it's you know, you've been here. This is episode 5, right? And you've been here all along, and so that is like almost the essence of what we're talking about,
I know it.
because what we're talking about, and again, it's like you think about my realm, restorative justice. You talk about spiritual justice. What does that justice word mean? It really starts to distill down to, okay, how do we find ways to take a harm and repair it and move forward? So one of at the top tier of restorative justice is reintegration, right? So the bottom tier is connection and relationship building. The second tier is responding to harm, and then the third tier is reintegration. Now, what reintegration means is, once we've gone through this process, and what our carceral system doesn't do right now, once we've gone through this restorative process and repaired harm, so a lot of people know and recognize that this person, whoever's going through this process, has caused harm, right? And so when we identify somebody and say they caused harm, boo boo on them, lock them up, send them away, all those things. Restorative justice says, no, no, no. We have a process. We talk about it. We find out what the needs were. We find out how to repair the harm, and we move forward, right? The last piece of that is reintegration. And the reintegration piece is, yes, as a community, we're going to recognize that that person has done this self-reflection. They have taken this accountability and responsibility. They have been willing to repair this harm. Now, our last part of a community is to welcome them back in the community and not ostracize them because they caused some harm at some point in the past, right? And so it's at the heart of it. And so then you go deeper, and that's why I see you talking spiritual calculus here, is like what we're trying to do is, especially in the work we do in schools, is to get into the climate and cultures of schools so that they are better able to identify those students who have more needs than other students in the realm of they have been harmed and they are going to cause harm, or they are actively causing harm because they have forgotten their true nature. And we've talked about this ad nauseum.
Oh
They
my
have
God.
forgotten, and we're in the business of having them remember their true nature, align with their meaning and purpose as young individuals, and go and start walking that path. And if we can't forgive both why they're there and that they are there in the first place, then our work goes nowhere.
Exactly. And this is the point of what we're talking about in this segment. Spiritual justice is not something you admire from afar. It is something we step into together. But here's the takeaway for this year. After more than 2 decades, right? For me, I'm reflecting on what it means to build this thing called conscious media, but conscious media with a twist. See, I'm not just interested in having conversations that make everybody feel good, right? That's what you and I are doing now. But we've watched leaders rise to the exact right moment. You see, we watch them rise. And I can say with certainty now, this is not a practice year. This is not it. This is not the energy of this year. It really is this year to become unmissable. People don't want to be invisible. This is one of those years of initiation. This is why you're doing the show this year. You can feel it, Eric. The people feel it. This is, forget about my Chinese friends, my ping pong friends say, get ready for the year of the fire horse. And I'm like, oh, okay. Momentum replaces hesitation. Leaders stop waiting to be discovered. This is a year where work moves into the world and keeps knocking from the inside. You see, unvisible doesn't mean we knock louder. It means clearer, more present, and more trusted. That's what we are talking about in the spiritual justice realm. And do you think I'm a little fired up on this, Mr. Eric Esley?
Heck yeah, and I'm there, and it's like it all ties together again. It's like, boy, I didn't know you. I When did you get your PhD in spiritual calculus? Because you got it, you got it, you
I
got it.
got
It's
my
like
butt kicked out in the desert. I'm telling you, in 1997, I met a woman called Sidonia Cahill because my boss wanted me to go steal all of her ideas out in the desert. And I came back and I was not the same. 1997, everything changed for me. But I didn't know anything, Eric. It wasn't until I started the show in 2003 and then got so sick in 2004 that I had to believe and have faith that there could be something different within me. See, that's what you're doing. You're inviting leaders, you're inviting people that have been incarcerated to come now, and not just look at yourself, but come now. And let's talk about how the birth version of you has been created from your prejudice, from your judgment of yourself. How do we do that? And isn't that what this episode is about?
let me go back just a little bit.
Sure.
So, and I love that terminology, unmissable, because
You're gonna get that in my email. I love
it's
it.
it's it's so, and then we in past episodes we talked about how one of the needs of those youth that we serve is to be seen, to be recognized, and we talked about the incidence of loneliness that our youth are experiencing right now because they feel disconnected, right? And so not only are we unmissable in this work that we're doing, the work that we're doing is intrinsically focused on making sure that all of those youth that we serve become unmissable too. And not just in the way of, okay, yeah, there's been damage done and we see that, and now you're in restorative justice and we're going to find you a way. We want to make for them unmissable their true nature, their
Absolutely.
gifts, their
Absolutely.
natural makeup before they were affected by whatever environments and circumstances led them to go to the path that they're on, to show them their unmissable natural state of alignment, of alignment, connection, meaning, and purpose. And then they become more powerful and in a different way, unmissable, just like what you are describing.
Absolutely. And by the way, come on now. When we're born into this world, kind of unlike other creatures, I've helped give birth to a little baby calf, right? I've seen little puppies come out. But when a little human baby comes out, oh Lord of mercy, what is that sound? What is going on to that with that baby? What is the baby crying? What is going on with the baby? And you see, that baby knows I am. I am unmissable. I know that. See, our innate nature is to honor ourselves. So
Yes.
what you're helping people with is peel away the layers that need to be healed, not just by the people that, like me, got very lucky in the courtroom, very lucky. Thank you, God. Thank you, Spirit. but everyone that's willing to come to the table. This is the year to be seen, to be heard, to be respected, and to show up with integrity.
And Dr. Pat, and let me just say one last thing about that as it relates to the show moving forward. And with that, what I have noticed is that there are so many people, there are so many great organizations that are doing that same thing in so many different ways. We need to talk to them and let their message and let their techniques and let their method of uncovering that be seen by more people.
Yeah. Eric, what a great topic. More to come. We're going to be having those leaders showing up here. Maybe we're going to have like panels of people. Whatever it's going to take, I want to ask you this last thing. Can you talk to the bridge that you're building? Can you talk to the bridge that the people you work with? Can you talk about the vision of how that bridge works? And again, let people know, how do they get a hold of Eric Esley?
Let me go how to get a hold of me first, because that's the easier one. You can contact me at eric.lee@fullcirclerj.org. If you want to reach out and email and connect with me, then we can set up a Zoom call. We can set up a phone call. If you're around Colorado, we can set up a lunch or whatever. Or you can contact my organization, Full Circle Restorative Justice, at fullcirclerj.org. Now, the work that we're doing. And, we started this work by reacting to harm done in the judicial system. Then we were invited to, help schools reestablish how they deal with harm done in schools and how they discipline that. And they wanted to do it more restoratively. And as we did this work, the thing that we recognized is that all of these harms that are done and all these referrals that we're doing, all these case referrals that we're doing are a snapshot in time that are indicative and refer back to a frame of mind that was created in these young people that was not representative of who they originally authentically are before whatever harm happened to them that sent them on a different path. What we want to do is to make their authentic self, to use your word, unmistakable to them and everyone around them, because we are able to point them back to a path that leads them to purpose and meaning and connection in their worlds. And it really gives them a second chance at life. And again, there's so many different ways that this happens with so many good organizations. We want to make sure that all of those are seen moving forward.
Yeah. This episode sets the stage for what's coming. It sets the stage for conversations that we can't anticipate, just like when we do the show, Eric. It sets the stage for a new narrative to be written and rewritten and modified and move forward, not under the guise of we should do it, but under the guise of spiritual justice. Eric, thank you so much for all of the above. Last question, personal message. What would you like to leave us with today?
I would like to leave you with this. Make yourself unmistakable to yourself. Forgive whatever it is you think you were, that you feel is holding you back, and dig a little bit deeper into your higher self and move forward and take action.
I want to thank you all for being part of this. I want to also ask you to take what you've heard today and play it forward. Pass it on. Even if you think, wow, that person's never going to listen to this, you never know. But this is not the year to hide or be shy. Let's do it together. Thank you all. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining me, Eric S. Lee, on the Spiritual Justice Show. You've heard me say it before. Restorative justice alone can't get us there. Repairing a wound matters, but if the system keeps cutting, the wounds return. Social justice fights for equity. But if we forget the human spirit, policy feels hollow. Transformative justice shifts culture. But without compassion, the changes just don't last. That's why spiritual justice completes the circle. It heals the heart while changing the system. It restores dignity while shifting culture. It brings spirit back into justice. And that's where you come in. Tune in each first and third Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time on the Transformation Network as we rise up, spiritual justice warriors. This means you choosing courage, compassion, and creativity in a call to action. Until next time, walk with courage, lead with compassion, live with spirit, because justice becomes here in the soul, and it continues with warriors like us. Join our community at spiritualjustice.net.